Welcome back, everyone. This is now the Db2 stream and the last session for the first day of the virtual conference for GSE UK. And I'm glad to welcome back, after a short break, Anthony Chiapatani again. And this time he's talking about new dimension of resiliency and recovery using Db2, Cyber Vault, and safeguarded copies. I think most of you probably know who Anthony is, but just in case, he works on the SWAT team in Db2 Vazos development at Silicon Valley Labs for the IBM, and has been with IBM for 27 years. Wow, actually, that's quite a lot, isn't it?
So actually, 31 years in my career, Colin, and only 7 with IBM. So
Right. Only 7 with IBM. Okay.
yeah.
So you've been around plenty of time before IBM. Good stuff. Okay, so please do ask questions if you want as we go along. Just put them in the chat window, and I'll pop up and maybe unmute people as required. Make sure you're comfortable. And as I say, last session for the day, and over to Anthony. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thanks, Colin. So thanks for coming to the last session of the day. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but if the last session you started your happy hour and your drink of choice, your Diet Coke or your beer or your mixed drink, send me a toast here. It's still middle of the day in South America for me. So this session here would be new dimensions with safeguarded copy in the Cyber Vault. So one of the things I do encourage you to do, the barcode that's not at the bottom, this is session 6F. So please, when we're done, fill out your evaluation form for 2 reasons. One, I always like to do better. Every time we present it, what you hear from us is very important. And 2, we want to give a decent score, so Colin invites me back. So today the agenda is kind of a long agenda that I want to set the framework around this. And this is an ever-changing piece of technology and things within Db2 ZOS and all database platforms throughout the world with Cyber Vault. So you can look, I'm going to talk through some high-level overview and kind of walk through the different pieces of this and how we have evolved. And there is a red book out there that we wrote about 2.5 years ago. You can always look at, but I will warn people, if you pull up that red book, the things that even I put in the red book have changed and evolved over time. So I've now getting questions say, well, Shabatoni, you gave me a recommendation in the red book and it's no longer your recommendation. It's changed that much. And it's going to continue to change, and the focus is on it. So we look through, if you went to my previous session, we talked about continuous availability. Then we talk about mass application recovery, and guaranteed absolute 100% resiliency and security is impossible. If you were at some point in time, you're going to have an LPAR crash. You're going to have some sort of an issue. And you need to be able to, whether the things that we've developed over time just for your local and your DR environment, but also in the cyber resiliency, is the ability to continuously deliver the application to our customers and our widespread audience, even when there's an outage. And then, I don't know why it's jumping on me, and do everything you possibly can, not only to prevent the downtime, but to minimize the impact of the downtime. And that would be recovery time objective as well as recovery point objective. And we'll talk through some of those things in upcoming slides. So I think as we talk through this, you've seen everything in the press. The impact of cyber attacks. You could see the various things that we have out there: closed for business, the number of dollars, the 4.5 million average cost, 29 days to recover. I even put up when I was developed this presentation last year. Initially, it was right around the time that in the United States, the Las Vegas casinos, and we were doing an IBM event. Thank goodness I wasn't there. But 2 casinos had cyber attacks. And one of the casino paid the ransom and came back, and other tried to fight through and had availability cost, the cost of losing business that was pretty high over a 10 to 12-day time frame. And even though that's when they stopped it, they still had continuous issues going forward. So it's alive and well out there, and it's very impacting. And so I think we, as a database group, as anybody in the industry, whether you're mainframe or distributed, it's a wide range of possible scenarios that we have to look through, and they're all there, right? And so cyber threats to enterprise are increasing, whether external malware, hacking, or insider threats. They're there. In the case of the Vegas, I believe, I'm not the expert in that, but they infiltrated by the help desk. And depending on your platform, we could see that privileged inside users are people that are threats, and so more so in a lot of cases than outside threats. And then you still also have application error, operational error, or somebody that doing something within the application purposely. So it's across the board: insider threats, calling in and manipulating the system. And then furthermore, and I didn't really think about this, that now that with the COVID environment working from home, the working changes, we have more and more people that potentially could have insider threats that open up risk of your home network and whatnot. So all sort of things that impact, that are threats that we got to take in consideration. And so if you look at this picture here, and I'll show you in a couple pictures here in the next couple slides, we in the industry and organizations and companies have done such a wonderful job of working through continuous availability. We have Metro Mirror, we have Global Mirror. We talked about multiple data centers in my last session. You have hyperswap technology, replicating data, gold copies, and all these things that we have out there that we built over time to be able to work through continuous availability. But now we have to worry about cyber resiliency. It's a whole nother level that we have to talk through. We need to talk about immutable copies that we can take, no one can touch, data isolation, data latency, minimizing data loss, all things that are out there that we need to take into consideration in this new dimension. So if we look through the business continuity disaster resiliency, the current infrastructure focus on continued business continuity and continuous availability. So if you look, we've done, duplexing the coupling facility, multiple techs, multiple LPARs, Metro Mirror configuration. I could bring down one site plan and have access to the other site. We have on the bottom right-hand corner, we've taken the DASD mirroring solutions, and I'll refer to it as IBM technology today, a 4-site solution. So we have Metro Mirror across the local site and global, and then Global Mirror. So we have 4 sites. We could change the personality. We could run on one data center for 6 months and another data center on another 6 months. The swap and stay mentality. So all things that we have done fantastically over the years. We have hyperswap capabilities. So if you have a DASD problem, a microcode problem, we can swap to the other one. And that technology has gotten so well over the years. Even 2 or 3 years ago, a hyperswap event was an outage. It caused timeouts. It caused a blip. Now these hyperswap events are seconds and doesn't even have transactions that time out. We replicate VTS and equivalent technology tapes or potential virtual tapes. Again, we talk site swap capabilities. We take gold copies. All these things that we have done over the years as background. So now let's look what happens if there's a cyber event that occurs, the same picture. And so when I hit my button, you're going to see when we do the corruption, whether it's that ugly skull that someone came in and put some ransomware on your system or a logical data corruption, it goes from primary to secondary. It propagates the metro mirror, the global mirror. And so what are you going to do when you need to hyperswap? It's corrupt in both places. Furthermore, the tapes are corrupted across the board. So that corrupts everything. And when I was writing a red book, this is what really shocked me. I didn't really think about it. That these cyber people that are going to do cyber um, stuff, they're organizations. I call them cyber organizations. They hire the right people, database people, to be on their staff. And what that leads to is a smart hacker, mischievous attacker. And before they inject the error, they'll delete the recovery site, recovery assets. We talk image copy, archive logs, and active logs. If they delete those pieces, then what are you going to recover to? How could you recover? Because now your recovery assets are not there. And then you're going to say, Shabatoni, well, I got gold copies. I take once a week. And that's fine. You could have a gold copy. But if you go back to that gold copy before this happened, you have guaranteed data loss. So all these things that we need to take into consideration. So that leads us to this picture here. Is this concept of, on the left-hand side, safeguarded copies. And what is a safeguarded copy? I'll go into more details on the next slide. Because basically, we take thin provisioned copies of your production environment, full system flash copies per se. They're called safeguarded copies. And we write those backups into a vault. In that picture there, that vault, it's a mutable copy. You cannot change the contents of that copy. You take it every 4 hours, every 8 hours, or twice a day, or once a day. And then you're going to say, okay, you tell me I can't change it. How do I use it? And to use it, we keep the mutable copy, the backup 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. We then would have to copy that environment with the DASI technology to recovery volume and a recovery system to be able to then validate it, test it, whatnot. And this gives you on the right-hand side copy separation from your copy from production and your recovery. And you have the safeguarded copy. It's immutable. People can't go in and change it unless you have 18 million signatures and approvals to do it. And it gives you the ability to have short-term as well as longer-term copies of your data. And we could get up to, most people are take it up to maybe aggressive every hour or two, and some people take every 1 day. And then if I look at the middle tier of things, is once we have that data in the recovery system 1, 2, 3, 4 times a day, once you have that data, you could do various different things. Data validation. Is my safeguarded copy validated? Is it good? I could use it for forensic analysis. Let's say that someone came in criminally or did something at 12 o'clock. Maybe I could get my 11 o'clock version, see what the data looked like beforehand, and you could wipe it out and go to 1 o'clock and compare and contrast and compare what's in production. You could use it for a surgical recovery. I have 1 or 2 objects over there, and then I could go find out what it is and bring that data back to production. And then if there's a catastrophic recovery that you had to bring the whole system back, that data from the safeguarded copy recovery volumes could be brought back to production. And then you can make an offline backup for historical reasons. So the safeguarded copy, then we have the copy separation, immutable, roles of responsibility, and cyber resiliency, and the things that you could do with them. And we'll talk the data validation, forensic, we'll talk at the end. So this is just a block out of that view, the recovery volumes picture. And basically, we're trying to accomplish here in cyber resiliency is the ability to anticipate, withstand, adapt to, and recover from adverse conditions, and give you a Shabbatoni injection here, give you the ability to have multiple options to recover. And then we also have to reduce the time to recovery. So if you go back to that original slide, 29 days on average. The case of the Las Vegas casinos, you're looking at 10, 12 days. And in this scenario is we want to get this recovery time down to hours, if not minutes, and then we're being asked to minimize any data loss in a cyber event. And so if you hear, we talk through Cyber Vault. So Cyber Vault in itself isn't a technology. It's built up of three pieces of it. We talked about the IBM storage, the safeguarded copies. That would be on the left side of the picture there. In the middle, you have GDPS, you have the recovery LPARs, and you have the process around it and tools around looking at different things, whether it's GDPS, your favorite recovery tool, your log analysis tool, those things, the hardware and software pieces of it. You know, on the right-hand side, I use IBM services. It could be anyone's services to build the processes around it. So storage, hardware and software, and services and man hours are together makes up the Cyber Vault concept. And so safeguarded copies here, just as I mentioned on a few occasions, they're a point in time copy. They're thin provisioned copies. You can't access them. We take it from production source to Cyber Vault, and to be able to do anything with them, you have to take it to the recovery systems and recovery DASD and recovery vaults. So it not only gives you the ability to protect yourself, depends on how much dollars you want to spend. Even the thin provisioning still costs whether you want to take X amount of copies a day and keep X amount of versions around. But again, source to safeguarded copies in the vault, recovery, and their thin provision of volumes. So I'll take a breath there and take a sip of water. Anyone have any questions or comments at this point? Okay.
I won't see any questions just now, Anthony. But I was just thinking about the thinly provisioned backup. So given that, you know, a fairly large amount of data, how thin is that? I mean, is it 10%, 20%?
So yeah, so it is a percentile, and it would be you really if you look at the storage column, the first copy is going to be a full copy, or there'll be a full copy within that historical piece of it, and all the additional thin provision copies will be the amount of change in your environment. So it would be if you have a lot of change in the percentile of your DASI, that would normally be kind of roughly what you would need. There's obviously people that are quite smarter than I that do this for a living, they can size it, but it dependent on the amount of changes.
Right. Okay. Interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And put things in perspective, you know, people aren't keeping these for 60, 70, 90 days. We're looking at 15 to 30 days and anywhere from 4 copies a day to 2 copies a day. So it just depends on there. But that exercise of estimating will come from we have tools and process in place to do that. And so this is the environment, right? You can have up to 500 safeguarded copies today. That's always being challenged and see if we can do more. And again, these are for, if you look at any one of those going back to this picture or even a picture before, there's backup 0, 1, 2, and 3. Even though they're thin provisioning from when we do any sort of work around them, excuse me, they're considered full volumes. So thin provisioning, but the end result are full volumes. And so then again, bring the data over to recovery volumes to be able to do some of this different work. So I'm just going to walk through a couple scenarios here. So if we take a copy at 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 12 o'clock, and then the outage, then the corruption is added to your environment at 2013. The last good copy is at 1800, and the cyber event is at 2013. That's an example that I'm going to go with. And I have, why do I have, Colin, why do I have minimize, I'm trying to minimize the banner I have, it's covering up half my screen.
Oh, I was going to say, it looks good here, I think.
Oh, there it goes. I just had to minimize it. Sorry about that. And so at any one of these copies, you could bring over to the recovery volumes to test. And then if there is a problem, you could restore the full system back to production, or if there's a surgical recovery process, just a few objects, you could recover them over your Cyber Vault system and copy them back to production. So if you kind of look through this, we started this journey, 3, 4, 5 years ago on this. And if you take there's some goods and some bads. So if you have a no roll forward solution, the advantage of this, if you have these copies every 3 hours in this example, it's a most efficient process because the recovery procedures, I would venture to believe you have your disaster recovery procedures in the same procedures that you'd have in this environment. You're going to recover bring the DASD back, IPL your system, and you're going to come up at 6, 9, 12, 15, whatever time frame you want to be able to bring your system back with no roll forward capabilities. Again, proven. We've had these processes. We're doing disaster recovery tests 2, 3 times a year. Group restart multiple times. It's a known commodity. The disadvantage of a no rollover for solutions, I could bring the system back up relatively quick, but it's guaranteed data loss. In this case, 1800 to 2013, you're going to have 2 hours and 13 minutes of data loss. And some people can't withstand that. Other people can withstand that and just want to bring the system up and they can recover that data on their own. And so again, the operational steps behind this is copy the DASD volumes over and do a group restart and data validation. What also is interesting is you don't have to be perfect. And what do I say you don't have to be perfect? Is you could, if you look at this picture, you can say, you know what? Maybe you didn't know that the corruption was found at 2013. So you bring up the 2100 safeguarded copy, you test it, and your data validation is bad. And so then you go to the previous one, backup 4, it's bad. And then you IPL off of backup 3 and it's good, then you have that opportunity. So the thin provisioning technology gives you the opportunity to do some trial and error. Obviously, you're going to have the stopwatch at you, then you want to bring it back, and recovery time is important, but it gives you some ability to have trial and error. Now, roll forward solution. So now that we had the safeguarded copy and in that sense, and we could come up at a point in time, everybody and their friends and their cousins are okay. I want to roll forward. It's great to recover fast. I can't have any data loss, or I want to minimize the data loss. So I'm just going to go back. When I hit enter, you're going to see on the right hand bottom corner, if we supplement archive logs and image copies to a safeguarded copy, when I mean supplement, is if the safeguarded copy is taken every 3 hours, but then I have another process that are taking archive logs and log no image copies and sending them offsite every 15 minutes or every 20 minutes. you could have the ability to lay down a safeguarded copy, add the archive logs back to DB2, and do a recover roll forward. The advantage of it is you minimize DB2 data loss. You're reusing the base technology of bringing things up the initial step. But now the disadvantage, or what I should have called it opportunities, you need to develop additional procedures and processes over top of the traditional safeguarded copy to be able to roll forward. Those assets need to be available either in the cyber vault or another immutable environment that a cyber vault can access. So in this case, you would look at, again, the same steps, bring your system back. And then after you bring the system back to a point in time, then you can do a restore log only. And we'll talk about restore log only steps in the next couple slides of version 12 versus 13 differences. And then group restart and data validation around that. So say in this case, safeguard a copy, supplement that with archive logs, log no image copies offsite that can be accessed. If you have those assets, you can use them to recover forward. So to walk through this process, I start off, even though this is a DB2 stream and this should be review and I'll go quick, I oftentimes give this where there's DASD folks involved also. So I just want to walk through some terminology. Again, DB2 Bootstrap, BSDS, the heart of keeping track of things. The LRSN, the log record sequence number. We have system point in time recovery base log point. So if you're doing a system restore system log only, we need a starting point and an ending point. If I go down to look at the syspit R and syspit T, those are conditional restart records that we tell DB2 when we are going to recover to. In this case, previously, it would be 2012. You put that LRSN there, the timestamp. Now, recovery base log point is a starting point. And the only way we'll talk about in version 12 and version 13 when it's updated, but to do a restore system log only, it needs a starting point. And again, we'll talk about that in the next couple slides. Change log inventory is to be able to update the Bootstrap data set with information. And then restore system is the start point and endpoint. And you can do a restore system at an object level that you may need or a system level. And we'll go through the scenarios. So if you want to roll forward, the recovery point objective will determine the frequency of some steps that we would like to do. So assuming an installation can only lose 1 hour of data, this is today, as an example, you would have to be able to go and search syscopy or find a log no event image copy, send those off. You want to make sure your archive logs are occurring frequently, so within the hour, so the archive logs are produced, the archive process, and then you take the logs off site. Then you're would need to run a DSNJ U004 to find out the common denominator of the lowest or the oldest LRSN for each of your data sharing members to combine as a group. You would also need to go out there and do a DSN1 log P to find that LRSN that you can recover to and add some ability to copy away those assets. So these are kind of steps that we built, roll your own steps today. Again, identify syscopy, log no events, and capture those data sets as image copies, produce archive logs that are more frequent than your objective, and have the ability to upfront find out what LRSN you'd be able to recover to for each of your archive log scopes, and then send those information off site to be accessible. And like I said, as this evolves, we're working on different things to automate, but today as we speak, It's a roll your own sort of process. And so how does that work? So I have these assets. So I'm going to recondition the bootstrap. So you delete the bootstrap and bring the B version archive log in. And so now your bootstrap is at your last archive log, we'll say is a 2012 in this case. And so your whatever your common denominator, you're bringing in last archive log of bootstrap back. And then you're going to define the point in time recovery. So you're going to run the DSNJU004, whether you do it proactively on the previous screen or reactively to get to understand what's going on in the environment. And then you're going to find the LRSN of 2012 that you want to recover to. And you're going to add the conditional restart record to Db2. So recondition the bootstrap and add the syspitter-R where you're going to recover to. So now Db2 knows about all this. How do I recover forward? And I'm going to talk about this in version 12 and in version 13 timeframe. So to be able to recover forward, we need from a system perspective, we need the RBLP, recovery-based log point, as a starting point. And you need the ending point, as I mentioned, the conditional restart record I mentioned on 2 previous slides. But here's the problem with version 12, is the RBLP, this recovery-based log point, we kind of developed it around backup and restore system. So there's only 2 aspects, 2 times that we update this RBLP, the starting point. We update it when someone issues a backup system, and I could probably do a roll of hands here. If you're not an SAP shop, you're probably not using backup system. So there's a small piece of the group audience that may be using backup system. And the only other way to update the RBLP in Db2 version 12 is to do a set log suspend and a set log resume on all members. What a great availability feature. So to be able to do this in version 12, those are the 2 scenarios. So now, if the RBLP is not updated and you lay down your safeguarded copy from 1800, you have all the assets in your archive to 2012, and Colin, with his fast fingers and dirty underwear, he's going to come and do a restore system log only. And what's going to happen? We're going to go back and we're going to start looking for that RBLP. And if you haven't run backup system or set log suspend, it's going to go back and back and back until eventually it's going to fail. And it could be that RBLP may be months, it could be years, it could be whenever. And so what does that lead you to? Db2 mass application object recovery, restore system at a pace set level. And depend on your environment, it could be quite challenging and daunting to do that. And we talked about the previous section. We do 2 or 3 mass application recoveries a year with customers. It's a daunting activity. And so now you have to build your mass application recovery. It just takes, you're building this infrastructure, and most people, even though that the propaganda is to plan, test, optimize, stress test, and optimize, it doesn't happen all that much time. So now we're going through this for the first time. And so for your awareness, this will be on your PDF when I upload it later today or tomorrow. You'll see the steps that we have to do, build all your recovery job, build them efficiently, and recover forward. And that goes back to people will throw their hands in the air and say, oh, I'm just going to recover back to 1800 and worry about somehow getting the lost data back. Or you're going to have the recovery time objective could be days, if not many days. So how does this look? Why is it different in version 13? In version 13, we unveiled a piece of code that's been out there for a while but not implemented. And instead of you relying on you to do a backup system or that wonderful availability feature, we are every 5 minutes, the DB2 engine will update that RBLP. So in version 13, function level 100, you get this. So every 5 minutes, that RBLP is updated. So you always have a start point. Now, I say it's updated every 5 minutes. It doesn't mean it's 5 minutes old. It's every 5 minutes to the last consistent recovery point to the group. So it could be 6 or 7 minutes. But the point is to make it's always being incremented. And you can always get the syspitter R, syspitter T available for a conditional restart record. And now, if you have the archive logs and log no image copies, you can roll forward. And why do we want a log no image copy? Because if you're going through and when there's log no event, you can't recover through it. So if that image copy is available after the system roll forward just once through the log, then you can do any additional recoveries at the object level from that image copy that was produced. And so I'm just going down the steps here is after you do the preconditioning work, you're going to start DB2 access main, respond to the conditional restart record. You'll do that restore system log only. Make sure that all the utilities are gone. If there's any objects that are in recovery pending or rebuild pending because of a log no event, then you have to go back and create the recover and the rebuild the index. So hopefully that's not as big, but you have one pass through the log for everything but a log no event, and then you have some subsequent steps you need to take if there was an online reorg or a log no event with a load. So I'll take a breath, restore my voice with a sip of water. Any questions, comments here? And if not, call in. Am I coming across loud and clear still?
Loud and clear. No questions at the moment.
Okay.
I think you scared everyone with the steps for version 12.
Yes, it's scary. And the good thing is we're trying to do our best to rectify it and come up with build some things to automate this for you. And so let me ask this question back here. This roll your own process that I'm going to go back to quickly. This roll your own process, would people in the room here, would you like to see an automated IBM solution around this to do this for you? And would it, in a cyber vault, would it be advantageous or whet your appetite? And Colin, if you could say, I can't see the chat, so I think a couple people responded.
No one's coming back just yet, apart from me, who said yes.
Okay. So if you see a aha idea or being a vote at a CAC or anything, if automate this process where it's evolution, we're trying to make it better. We need interesting parties to be able to put development resources and things in place to be able to automate this process for you. And we go back. That was definitely one of those ones that you could in person raise your hands. A lot better question for you. Okay. So now I'm going to change gears a little bit in the last 10 or 15 minutes. So now you're taking these safeguarded copies. And I have this in a vault. I have recovery volumes and a recovery system. So the goal here now is not only to have that in a case of a problem, but also to be able for data validation. I invested millions and millions of dollars in a solution. Do I have a validated copy to recover every day or multiple times a day? And if you want a validation process, it has to be repeatable. It has to be automated. I can't imagine someone sitting at the keyboard every day to validate a volume to IPL, group restart, and go through data validation. And now the data is corrupt, that's one piece of the puzzle that it's $1 million question. What was corrupted? What caused it? And when was it corrupted? So that is a process you can't necessarily automate, but you could go through a trial and error and look for different corruption pieces and where the corruption occurred. And then the last piece of it is if one, you validate every day, then you have a problem. When was it corrupted? And then what do I do for recovery actions? Now, if you are investing this money and you validate it, I strongly recommend to test, be confident, operational confidence around doing these things, because the last time, the worst time to do it is when you have a cyber event. So this continuous data validation where organizations are asked to try to take one step in advance to be able to go out and do data validation once a day or multiple times a day. Just make sure you have a checked off approved copy that's validated, and then if it's not, you could then look at some different recovery actions. But the goal is to perform validation to detect it and on a daily basis. If it's checked off, you check it off, you mark it as good, and potentially send off some data even to an offsite, even outside of the vault. And the concept, and I say concept because everybody is different, so it's evolving. The concept would be to IPL the recovery image. At least one LPAR is needed in a couple facility is available. You could use some of the technology, the recovery assistant recovery boost, and different things that we have in IBM offering. And then type 1, you're going to check the Sysplex infrastructure to see if it's up and IPL'd correctly. Type 2 data validation would be to do a Db2 group restart and do checks and balances on our friendly, usually during a release and disaster recovery, the consistency checks on the catalog and directory, DSL1 copy, check utility consistency queries. And then from there, this is where it gets a little bit a concept versus reality. What do you do to validate the data? So there's various different things you could do. You could use our check index, and you could sprinkle those across your most valuable assets and run that on a daily basis. Your top 50 table spaces is one option, and run those in background. If you come back with a return code 0, mark it off, thinking that a smart cyber attack would only go against your critical objects. Or some people say, you know what, I'm going to take my production objects, split them up and divide by 7, and 1/7 of the objects I'm going to check index on a 1/7 everyday basis. So in a week time frame, you get everything, but on an everyday basis, 1/7. Or you could develop your own. There's customers that develop processes, select the probe index table consistency. And then you could test also over there, make sure your tape assets are available. You could even test recovery scenario, roll through the logs if you so desire. Again, a concept, everybody's different, and the journey is different along the way for just about everybody. And type 3 would be taking the next step further, run patch jobs or run something out there, or do some data content validation from an application perspective. You could do the validation type 1, type 2, or type 3, or a combination thereof. If no issues found, mark it off as good. Now, you could also use this as a forensic system. So remember when I said the trial and error? You could actually, if there was something that was corrupt, one way of looking at it is I bring back the most current, it's corrupt. Current -1, it's corrupt. Current -2, it's not corrupt. So you know the corruption happens somewhere from n-2 to current. And so you can go through and look to see, use it as a forensic environment, or maybe you bring your systems up, you go through type 1, it's fine. Maybe even type 2, partially you get Db2 up, but there's objects that are out there. So you go back and again at the object level, see when the corruption occurred. You can run your favorite log analysis tool to look at different things through the log. So again, that could be used as a forensic environment. And it'd be very similar to the data validation. You could bring this up, trial and error, and run some of your utilities and try to find where the corruption occurred. And if you develop a strategy ahead of time, and again, we're in our infancy still within a couple of years, people are learning that you're going to identify what to look for and what to do to check for corruption. You could also use this surgical data recovery. So you know you are corrupt in production. You may be able to copy these other volumes to another environment, recover to the time, do restore system to the time of the corruption, and maybe take various objects. I could take an image copy, take the image copy over. You could do bring data sets over. You could then just use it for a surgical recovery. Now, surgical recovery means different things for different people, but that's another environment. I could recover over there. Why production's up and running, maybe it's limping along, or maybe I don't want to touch that production environment, and you're going to recover just certain objects or a subset of objects. So it could be used for surgical data recovery in that aspect. And you kind of walk through this environment here, tiers of this. Now, today as we speak, and this is changing, there's a roadmap to integrate utilities and whatnot. But here's some scenarios here. If you wanted to recover, and today there's a point in time, it is April 23rd. So they timestamp this, I think it's being recorded. If production, you have your backups and your logs available in production and just the objects are corrupted, that would be the system with less resistance. Use the local backup image copies and logs to recovery. The second one, backups are available not in production, that the smart cyber vault person was there, they deleted it. But the log hasn't been corrupted, and you could bring the image copies back to production, and then the logs are fine. And so you could bring that back to production and recover forward. Or in the case of the last one, if everything's corrupted and include the log, then you'd have to pick and choose where you recover to, and maybe restore that object in the vault, and then because you're saving some of your assets offline, bring it up, you get a consistent point in time, no one's accessing it, do an image copy, bring the image copy back. So there's various different things you could do, but I don't want to give anyone a false sense of security that the cyber vault's going to fix all your problems, you recover everything. I still kind of walk through hierarchy of what you would do first. If you could recover in production, that's going to be the best. This landscape with tooling and integration may change over time, but this is where kind of the scenarios we're at today. So I can't believe, Colin, it's probably today is on April 23rd, might be a miracle. I actually finished a couple minutes early today. That doesn't happen very often. So I will make one comment and open up for questions. Again, going back to the session evaluation is very important to the GSE committee. They do a wonderful job to get your feedback is important to them. The feedback is important to me also. I wanted to deliver the content that's important to you. And again, I mentioned the better, if you give me a good review, Colin will invite me back with open arms. If you give me a bad review and I'm not the right person, that's fine too, and Colin could plan accordingly. And so with that, I'll thank you and open it up for any additional questions since we're 10 minutes early. And if Colin has any comments as the moderator of this, we could talk through that now.
Not seeing any questions just now.
Is anyone still alive out there?
I think so.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of information in there.
There.
And I think it's a subject that people are probably going to go away and read up a bit more about and have a look at. So
Okay.
I think questions may come in time rather than right here and now.
And that's fair. And Colin, I will before I leave Brazil by the next couple of days, I'll get the PDF version that's up for this as well as the previous one, so people will have that. And I think you recorded the session too.
Yes, it's it's been recorded and will be up on some format or other very soon after the conference. But
Perfect.
if there is anybody you think might be interested in this, then by all means point them in this direction. Otherwise, thanks very much, Anthony. That was a great session.
All right, thank you,
made
Colin,
loads
and
of
thank you
notes, so
for
that's a good sign.
that is a good sign.
And
And thank you for inviting me. It's always a pleasure to present to this group of people.
thank you. So that's it for today. Starts again tomorrow, Wednesday at 9 a.m. Have a good evening, and I'll give it one last chance for questions. No, okay. So I think that's it. Thanks very much, everyone. See you again tomorrow.
All right, bye-bye, guys.
Thanks, Anthony.